Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 209, Weight Loss and Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome with Tim Kaufman.
We work hard throughout the year to bring you high quality information and amazing guests, and we are taking a little break throughout the summer. But as you know, since you're listening to this podcast right now, it does not mean that we're stopping. What we've done is we've made a collection of our favorite guests and some of the most popular shows, and we're bringing them back to you for 3 reasons.
So basically, some of you have been with us since the beginning, and now that we have over 200 episodes, we thought that not everybody has been subscribed since the beginning, and we don't want you to miss some of these really important shows like the one that we have for you today. So every time we re-listen to our podcasts or our webinars or lectures, we take away something new or we realize something different.
And you might know somebody who can benefit from this show, and maybe you didn't think about it the first time. So as you're re-listening to the show and getting some new revelations, just kind of think about who could really benefit from this information in the show, and who do you want to pass it on to, and please share it with them.
In this episode, we're sharing one that we actually did a while ago in episode 135 with a friend of ours, Tim Kaufman, who's been doing incredible things, incredible transformations for himself, but that's bleeding over to other people. He just recently spoke at the Buffalo Marathon, and he's impacting people all over this planet.
With Tim, we talk about getting fat and getting thin. We talk about Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome and how to get to the start line. And of course, we talk about a lot more. The new cookbook is finally done. We created a cookbook that's perfect for any home, whether you're one person or a large family. Our beef or tofu with cookbooks is that you always want to make all the recipes in the book, and then you're left over with 1,000 ingredients and you don't know what to do with them. And also, recipes can be really, really difficult and take over an hour just for the main course. But this book is different. It's divided by ingredients, which allows you to A, batch cook and save time. Many recipes are made in under just 15 minutes. And B, plan your weekly meals based on ingredients, which saves you money. So head over to planttrainers.com or click on the link in the show notes and get your easy recipes for busy parents cookbook today. It's so simple, even your kids can make the meals. And did I mention that some of the recipes can be made in under 15 minutes?
And now for a moment of gratitude.
Since it's the summer and we want to always be true in our moment of gratitude, and we're not here to give one right now, we are just going to ask you to take a moment and find something that you're grateful for in your own life. We are here with Tim Kaufman. Tim, thank you so much for being on the Plant Trainers podcast today.
Oh, thank you for having me, and thank you for what you guys do. I really appreciate it.
Well, we're very happy to have you today. And before we get into a little bit about you and your story, we wanted to know if you could share one moment of gratitude with us.
Well, as you'll probably hear in a few minutes, my entire story has to do with finding gratitude. So I guess this sounds weird, but I'm very grateful that I found gratitude. But on a daily thing, I mean, the way I see it, once I open my eyes in the morning, you know, that's a blessing in itself, just to wake up, and then to get out of bed on my own power is another thing. So the first 2 things I think about in the morning are those, and being grateful for that.
Your waking up in the morning, if we could start there, used to be very different because you had about 400 pounds on you.
Right, yeah, waking up in the morning, honestly, and you know, my darkest times, there were times I didn't know if I'd wake up in the morning, and honestly, some days I don't really know if I cared, but you know, I would wake up, and yeah, it was a project just to get out of bed and, you know, get to the bathroom and get everything moving again. And yeah, even, you know, daily stuff, even getting dressed and stuff. Most days my wife would have to put my socks and shoes on me because I couldn't get down to put them on. So everything was difficult in the morning.
And if I could just go back to the night times, what was it like going to bed at night, not really caring if you were going to wake up in the morning? What, were you concerned at night? Was your wife concerned? Can I go there with you? Is that okay?
Yeah, she was definitely concerned. I didn't sleep real well. I had sleep apnea, just, you know, horrible. And so I would, you know, snore really loudly, and then all of a sudden it would just like pause. and she'd end up shaking me because she thought I stopped breathing. And this was just, night after night after night of, actually having acid reflux so bad that I would aspirate in my bed and start choking. Nighttime was really bad. If I did get sleep, it was not sound. It wasn't constant sleep. It was, 15, 20 minutes here or there. So nighttimes were bad.
And was there an emotional feeling that you had with that as well? Or was that just how things were and you just kind of went on with that?
Yeah, I think in time, these things kind of happen gradually. So, I think in time you kind of get used to it, and it's just the way it is. And it's just, it kind of creeps in slowly. So you don't really see this huge change happening. It's just little by little. So you're talking about the emotional part for at nighttime, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So Tim, were you always a big guy?
Yeah, I grew up in kind of a rural community. We have a lot of farms around and stuff, and football's really big here. So yeah, I was always kind of a big guy, but I was pretty strong. I wouldn't say I wasn't like obese in high school, but I was always a bigger kid. My entire family's big.
And they're still big now, or have they followed in your footsteps?
Yes and no. My mom is a self-proclaimed professional dieter. And one of the things she told me that it hit me pretty hard is she has dieted her whole life and worked hard to stay fat. And I can say that because that's her own words. But I think that that's a pretty typical thing with dieting, just because it's so temporary. Whether she's getting ready for a cruise, she'll, go on a whatever diet and lose a bunch of weight. She has been on every diet, from the cabbage diet to the Tic Tac diet, you name it. She's done it. She's got a book on it. My mom and my sister have been, plant-based for a while, kind of on and off, but it just seems to never stick, I don't think.
I want to just focus a little bit more on you because you have a very interesting story. You were a football player. You were a big guy, strong guy. What really led to you gaining all this extra weight, getting up to that 400-pound area, I guess you could say? And then I want to know what made you actually click to put you in a position to say, enough is enough. It's time for my life to change, and I want to make that happen.
Wow, that's a big question. So I have a genetic connective tissue disorder called Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. So like I told you guys before, my wife and I got married very young. We were high school sweethearts. I was a hardworking kid, and my plan was to do manual labor for my life. My dad was a machinist, and my grandfather worked in a factory, and that's pretty much what I had figured on doing. But as I got older, into my early 20s, what used to be like a klutzy kid, like twisting my ankle or, always getting hurt or like accident prone type stuff, started to become a little more than just, I'm a klutz. My shoulder actually started dislocating to the point where I would sneeze and it would come right out of me. It would just dislocate. So working in the factory, I decided to go get it looked at. And what they found is my capsule on my shoulder was actually 7 times larger than it should be. So they went in there to do surgery. It's something called an arthroplasty, and they just figured it'd be like a standard thing where they pull all the tendons and ligaments up and out, and then they kind of fold them over and then stitch them to kind of tighten the whole thing back up. After the surgery was terrible, but I can remember the doctor saying that, something wasn't right. It was way too stretchy when they pulled on everything. So after, I forget exactly what the recovery time was, but when I went into physical therapy, I literally would just move my arm a little bit and my shoulder would just dislocate again after they tightened it up. So they knew that there was something wrong. And then I started getting more tests. And at the same time, my sister was going through this out in Connecticut, and she went to Yale to get some genetic testing. And that's when they found whatever chromosome it is for the Ehlers-Danlos. So basically it's hypermobile syndrome. So if you roll your ankle, it hurts really bad. Basically, I was starting to go through that almost, at least once a day, something would dislocate to the point where I would be on crutches, for something once a week. So along with the pain after the surgery, the painkillers started coming in, and the anti-inflammatories. And some pretty, standard issue medicine. But as the years went on and the injuries got more severe and arthritis started setting in, you can only, dislocate a joint so many times, and you start doing damage to the cartilage and all the parts that, rub together. So the pain meds started going up higher and higher, as did the anti-inflammatories. So I found myself, I was on pain medicine for a long time. And the very quick story is there was a progression from like regular hydrocodone to fentanyl, where I just had like a constant drip of fentanyl. And so the more painkillers I had, the less I felt like doing. And the more I started eating and the less active I got, and it just kind of snowballed.
It's snowballing into a disaster from what it sounds like, and you're probably very depressed at this point and addicted to painkillers. And so instead of continuing down that path as we speak about it, maybe you could just jump to the moment where something clicked and, you finally took hold of your life again.
Yes, it basically it did. It set up the kind of a perfect storm for less activity, more pain, and my life became, really garbage food. And the short of it is, it was just trying to just escape all the time. Whatever I could find for a temporary escape, I would do it. So at this time, I'm probably in my mid 30s. We have two, younger kids at the time. And things are busy. My wife has a business. I'm a teacher. So we were super busy, and, kids going to softball games and all this. And the busier we got, the worse the food choices got, to where we were ordering sometimes, pizza and wings maybe 4 or 5 nights a week, going out once a week. And then everything else for me was fast food. Most days, like a typical day, I would eat fast food at least 3 times. And then we'd have takeout at night. And that just became, my thing. That's what I did every day. I'd get home from work, and as fast as I could get on the couch, that's how fast I could get on there. But we got some terrible news that my wife's mom hadn't been feeling good. And she started getting really, really sick. So we took her into the doctor. And, being high school sweethearts, our families were super, super close. So I spent a lot of time at her house when we were kids. She spent a lot of time at my house. So her mom was a really special lady to us. And she was diagnosed with leukemia, which we had sickness in our family, but nothing like that just dropped like that on us. So we were instantly immersed into this whole cancer scene. And, in Buffalo, we have Roswell Park. It's like the huge cancer place. People come from all over the place. And it seemed like a switch just flipped. Instead of worrying about getting kids to softball and stuff, it started becoming who's going to be up at the hospital with mom. And we're eating up there and just trying to spend as much time as we can as she got sicker and sicker. And at the same time we're going through that, my father, who was my best friend, got diagnosed with kidney cancer. And his doctor gave him 6 months to live. So we went into a world that we didn't know, and we went in fast, and it was bad. It totally flipped our lives upside down. And I had, I was just constantly knee braces. I was actually getting my legs casted for special braces and crutches and all this. And I remember it was always poor me. I had a problem. There's no doubt about it. I still do. My joints dislocate all the time. But I would complain about my legs every day. But for some reason, walking out of Roswell and seeing all the kids, running around because she was in a leukemia room, the wing, and a lot of times they would put her in the pediatric wing because it's like super sterile there. And just to see the kids like playing and stuff. And then, here I am limping around. And I remember her mom was so sick. Her job was to try to stay alive one more day. And her mom was so sick. And when she opened her eyes and saw me, the first thing she said to me was, "How's your knee?" Mm-hmm. And it just crushed me. It's just like, here she is. She knows she can't come out of there. She can't even get out of bed. And she's worried about my knee. And a switch flipped. You get into the selfish world. And addiction is selfishness in itself. It always starts out with I. And, I did some serious soul searching walking out of there. realizing that, yeah, my knees hurt, but there are so many people in that hospital that would jump into my body tomorrow if they could. And although my legs hurt, I still had legs to move, and I still could walk out of that hospital and, not have a mask over my face and worried about my immune system. So things started changing that way for me. I started being thankful for what I had instead of just focused on this bitter life that, was just doom and gloom. I still was alive, and I still had my family, and I still had things to fight for. And her mom and my dad didn't. They were trying, but they couldn't. So her mom ended up getting lymphoma, and she passed away. And then my dad, he was given 6 months. He made it 6 weeks, and he passed away.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was a terrible time. And I can remember the one morning I was sitting in the kitchen chair, and Heather was putting my socks and shoes on, and she'd lace up my shoes, and then she always tap my ankle a couple times, like, okay, like you do for a little kid, you're ready to go. And I looked down, I could just see the pain, because I knew, and I think everyone knew where I was medically. I was next. And I don't think I would have made it another year. My blood pressure on 3 different medicines was 255 over 115. My resting pulse, we couldn't get it under 115, 120. My cholesterol was over 300. Triglycerides were 279. And the pain medicine was just going up and up and up and up. And whatever I could find to medicate and escape, then that's what I did. So I knew I was in trouble. And I figured, if my wife has to deal with another loss and I had anything to do with it, if I could change it in any way, I should at least try. So I started doing a bunch of research, and I was looking at bariatric surgery. So I liked the gastric sleeve. Looked like it had a lot of success, but I kind of liked the lap band too, because it felt like you could get out of that if you needed to. So I did all the paperwork. I went into a company in Buffalo that does them. I went to the little seminar things that they have. I had a nice little folder, packet. I had everything all set, and I had to get my primary physician to sign off on it. And I can remember talking to my wife about it, and she was not interested. And the thing about my wife, she's always supported me in every single thing I've done. Even if it's wrong, she's always been there, and she's always been super supportive of any crazy idea I get. But I could not sell this one to her. I tried everything, and she just, as long as she was going to tell me no, but I just couldn't sell it to her. So I went online, and I got a bunch of YouTube videos and a playlist, and they showed people getting surgery that were where I was. They were 400 pounds. And the next year they're out, running marathons. And I'm like, this is what I have to do. This is it. Just go get the surgery, get this done, and start a new life. So I went in to the doctor, and I took her with, and I had this very well laid out plan that I was going to present this whole thing. And then when my wife saw what the doctor said, what a great idea I had, she'd be like, yeah, go for it. So I laid everything out, and my doctor said that he signed off for every single person that's ever wanted the surgery, and it's been successful. That's temporary now, I know, but he would not sign off for me. And I was devastated. And his reasoning was, with my joint condition, he was worried that I would lose weight so fast that I would break down muscle, and then I would never get out of a wheelchair. It's kind of cool, because a film company was interviewing my doctor. He was really cool. He did an interview for a film that I'm in. And to hear him talk about it now, it's like, it blows my mind, because like I kind of don't remember a lot of stuff he was saying. But he said that basically his job every 30 days was to just keep me out of a wheelchair for another 30 days. And this is going back, 15 years ago. So he counted it a success if I wasn't in a wheelchair in 30 days. So, that's where I was. So he walked out of there, and I'm like, I'm done. That was my death warrant. I'm done. But I just, I didn't know what else to do. So I did, again, coming from a dieting family, I started getting out the diet books, and I did what everyone else does. Less calories, movement wasn't even a thing, exercise, that's ridiculous. I was just trying to lose weight with, being calorie deficient. So things like, it's funny now, I look back and I thought I was being really healthy, with the Atkins thing. And, dipping pork rinds in ranch dressing, and, that was health food to me then. And I lost weight. I lost a pretty good amount of weight, probably 60 pounds. And I had done Atkins once before. I never was really big on dieting, but I had done Atkins before where I lost like 40, 50 pounds. And then, you gain it back with interest, a few months later. So I had tried that once, but this time, it's going to be different. But as I started transitioning, actually started thinking about what I was eating, I started tossing in more food that I knew was healthy. So in the morning, I would stop at a fast food place and I would get 2 sausage biscuit sandwiches. What I started doing is, taking a banana or 2 with me. And if I would eat a breakfast sandwich and then have a banana or 2, I really didn't want the second one. In the beginning, I would save it for lunch, but that went away. So I started just like still eating the junky food, but I was mixing some good stuff in there too. And I was successful. I started losing weight, but I still felt like crap. I was still on all my medicines. I still wasn't sleeping through the night, but I was lighter. And that in itself made my joints a little bit better just from getting some weight off of them. So one day I'm sitting on the couch and the movie Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead came up in Netflix. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like me. So I played it. And are you guys familiar with that movie?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So Joe Cross basically just, he gets a juicer. He comes to the U.S. and he spends 60 days, doing nothing but, fruit and veggie juice out of his juicer. He loses a bunch of weight and gets rid of, I think, almost all his medicines that he was on. And I'm like, I'm going to try this. So before the credits rolled, I had actually ordered a juicer off Amazon. And it just happened to be around the time it was close to New Year's. So January 1st, it'd be almost 4 years ago. And I remember the last thing I ate was a piece of pickled herring at 11:59. It's like I couldn't have picked a better choice for that, right? But I had no idea where it was going to go from there. So I started the 30 days, and the first 3 days I kind of felt pretty good. But it's funny because when I got the juicer, because we shopped at like convenience stores, just stop. And we never really went shopping. And if we did, it was like for all box food. So I went to go get stuff to make juice, like Joe Cross did. And I grabbed, a cucumber or whatever and some celery. And I put this through the juicer and I get like a half a cup of juice. And I'm like, okay, we're in trouble.
It's going to fill my little pinky.
Yeah. And, I'm a big guy. And, if I'm going to do this, they said you shouldn't be hungry. So I don't, that's not going to fill me up. But so what it did really is it started shifting the way I thought in how we buy food. Buying food wasn't speed dial. We were so bad we would call the pizza place and they knew who we were just from caller ID back in the day. And every one of my pizzas used to come with 4 blue cheeses, 1 in each corner. And they knew that. I didn't have to ask for it. But it started this thing where I started going shopping, which was really weird. But then I started finding this is not sustainable, just financially to buy this stuff from the stores we were buying. So we started looking for produce companies. I started actually, calling restaurants and trying to find out where they buy carrots from in there. So we got hooked up with some, actually places that deal with restaurants. So I could get, 25-pound bag of carrots for, like $12. And we started learning how to shop. We started learning how to buy produce. And we weren't hardly going to stores anymore. We were just, shopping between produce companies and restaurant places. And that kind of got the juice thing going. But what I noticed is by probably the first week, I started sleeping through the night. And that was huge. I hadn't slept through the night in so long. Like I would wake up and I'd be in the same position that I fell asleep in. And that was a miracle. Like I never thought that would ever happen. And then obviously the more sleep you get, you start getting more energy. Stuff just started getting, within 7 days, 7 days, I started noticing differences. I started feeling great. And obviously I was losing probably a pound a day on that. So the weight was coming off really fast.
And the apnea? Yeah,
that started. I don't remember exactly when that stuff went away, but it must have went away to the point that I would sleep through the night. But by the end of 30 days, for sure, that was 100% gone. Which for years people had told me, because I like really spicy food, and for years everyone says it's the hot peppers. It had nothing to do with hot peppers. It was totally grease and sugar. But that's probably for another podcast. But yeah, I can eat a ghost pepper right now. It doesn't bother me at all. But I know it was the grease and the sugar. But so anyways, as I'm doing this, I'm feeling better and better and more energy, and it's exciting, and I'm starting to see hope again. But at the same time, I realized like this is totally not sustainable. I can't live on juice the rest of my life. And I had set out for 30 days, and it was coming to a close. And Netflix says, because you watch this, they suggest that you watch something else. And that something else happened to be Forks Over Knives.
Right.
And that movie actually, I told Lee Fulkerson when he was interviewing me, I'm like, you don't understand, that movie it didn't save my life. It gave me an entirely new one. It was a game changer. And it was stuff that I had never heard. I mean, you kind of, eat your veggies, that growing up, you should eat your broccoli and stuff. But I never realized that it had that kind of impact, that I had any control over where I was, like to that extent. I wanted to lose weight after I got denied the surgery. I wanted to lose weight so I could live another year, not go run a marathon, So I figured if I did it for 30 days, I hadn't had meat or dairy, and I was on juice. What if I just try to do 30 days, just whatever I'm juicing, just start eating? And that's how I kind of transitioned. And then once, I think if I remember, I was still doing oil and stuff, but I wasn't doing any processed food, no meat and dairy. And, I just kept feeling better and better and better. And then the fentanyl it got to the point with the fentanyl that I would take it just to feel normal for the day. So it wasn't like, I didn't really know what was causing the pain more, the withdrawal or the pain. But what I did is, and I don't suggest this for anyone, by the way, you should definitely go get professional help. But what I did is every day I would put a patch on, I would cut a little sliver off of it from the last time. And over the month, those little slivers added up into, I only had one sliver left on me. Again, I would not suggest that to anyone to get off of that. They should definitely go to a clinic or seek professional help. So I ended up getting off my fentanyl and all the Lortabs and all the other stuff. And I just felt better and better. And as fast as it snowballed downhill, that's how it unrolled and then some.
Amazing. Just the fact that everything kind of came to you at the right time, and you were able to move from the juicing to eating what you juiced and then figuring out what to do for there. Because I know a lot of people who go on said diets don't have a plan for when they're done. So they do these, 10-day juices, 20-day juices, and then what? They go back to how they were eating before. And you manage to find a way and find the will to not only move forward with your nutrition, but move forward with other areas in your life where you had been experiencing a lot of addiction, and you were able to control yourself in that way.
Right. And I think, I mean, for me, and I can't speak for everyone that's an addict. I mean, I'm still an addict. I'm still, I wrote a blog a while back on the loopholes in a plant-based diet. And I said that like cashews and avocados became my cheeseburgers. It was that high calorie dense food that I just replaced all the junk food with. So I will always be an addict, and it's just my personality, but I know it's there. So I know not to go buy a pound of cashews and put them in my pickup truck when I go to work. But I think addiction, and I think it was a lot easier going plant-based to get rid of a lot of those addictions because I felt better about life. And for me, my addiction was trying to escape life. And now, every day I get up, I told you before that, there were days I went to sleep and I didn't really care if I woke up. I can't wait to get up. I can't sleep past 5. 4:30, like I'm chomping to get out of bed. I can't wait for the day to start. I can't wait for the sun to come up. I love my life now. And it spilled over in way more ways. Looking back, it was, the medical and weight, and that's what everyone sees. And that's what everyone, my doctor now, he sends patients to me before they get surgery. They have to come talk to me. It's kind of cool. So he basically denies everyone for 60 days. So if they go in there to get the same paper signed that I did, they have to give me a call. And I have them over for dinner. And we usually have burgers and fries. veggie burgers and potato wedges, but I tell them it's burgers and fries. And
Gotta get them through the door.
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing that they come in. No, it's been my experience. People don't really want the surgery. They just don't know what to do. They want to hit that reset button, and so many of them just say they just want, to hit the reset to get a new start. And the thing is, whether they get it that way through the surgery or not, they're still going to have to deal with the battle of the mind and learning how to see things differently, gaining a perspective about what food is and what food isn't. So it's really cool. And then to see, like, now my cholesterol is like 117, my triglycerides are 74, my blood pressure is, in fact, this morning I was trying to warm up, just stretch, and I was on a bike. And I was doing like 100 RPM, and I'm looking down and I can't get my heart rate, even past 85. And I'm thinking, my resting heart rate, he was trying to get me below 115 so he could send me home. It blows my mind. But that's what people see. And that's what people, it's the big shock and awe. But really, that looking back, that was just, a byproduct to spend some of the things that my wife and I do now. It's just, I can't believe it. I have boxes of braces and crutches. And about a month and a half ago, we summited Mount Washington in New Hampshire. That was on my list for a long time. And I'm thinking, we're up at the top we're almost to the summit. We're on like the cone. And we sat down, had an apple, and I was putting her backpack on her. I'm thinking to myself, here this lady used to put my socks and shoes on in the morning, and now I'm helping her with her backpack at over 6,000 feet above. We're looking down at the clouds. It was just like, it's like magic. It's just like, it's unbelievable.
It's the power of taking hold of your life. It's the power of wanting and being ready to make a difference, but also understanding what it is that you can do to make that difference in your life that got you there, from what I understand from your story.
Right. And, the thing is, I usually say this at the start of my interviews, that I usually put like a disclaimer in there. I'm a busy guy, and I told you I love my life. And honestly, just, I love talking to you guys, but if I didn't believe that this is out there for anyone, there's nothing special about me. I told, when the news people were interviewing me, I'm just a fat guy that ate a bunch of apples. That's literally all I am. And it's out there for anyone. There's no tricks. There's no money. It's there. And if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't do one more interview, because it would just be a waste of time for me and everyone listening.
But you know what it is, Tim, and I say this a lot. I'm sure the listeners have heard me say this before. It's that people are waiting till something tragic happens to them or someone they love before they're going to make the choice to change something in their life. And it always comes down to that situation where something awful's happening. Oh, I got to make a change. Now it's a sense of urgency. And what I would love to do, and I'm sure you would too, and all of us would, is get people to start making that change and making those better choices before it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be awesome. But
but it's not realistic, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, there again, looking back at me being 400 pounds on the couch, it's mind-blowing. In fact, just before I got on with you guys, I'm writing a little article for Veg World magazine, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, if you would have told me, okay, so I used to process meat. That's what I grew up on a farm. So like, I had my own cows, my own pigs. We used to process sometimes 300-400 pounds of meat in my kitchen on a weekend. That's what me and the boys did. I have deers tattooed on my arms, that was my life. And, when I started juicing, I'm not gonna lie, I'm drinking kale, mean green, right? And I have a big wad of Copenhagen in my lip. So for somebody to say, hey, you need to be a little proactive and take care of your health, I mean, I would have laughed so hard, it would have been a joke. So it's hard for me because I have so much passion for this and I want to shake people. But at the same time, if they're not ready and they're not willing, they're not gonna do it. And the same thing with an addict kind of mentality. I didn't care about myself, or I wouldn't have been in the place I was, right? I mean, I wouldn't have been seeing how many painkillers I could stuff in my face. I wouldn't have done any of that if I cared about myself. But I think from an addict standpoint, when you have to start thinking about other people and take that focus off yourself, don't be selfish and do this for someone else, it kind of puts a new light on things, because then it's not about my happy, it's about making someone else happy. And the takeaway is, when you start trying to make other people happy, you're going to be the happiest guy in the world anyways. So if that makes sense.
What I hear from a lot of the people who we work with is, whether they're young families or whether they're older families, it's always, I've tried everything and I'm at my last resort and I have nothing left. I need this to work. And they've finally come to a realization that something big has got to change. Everything else out there is just not going to cut it. It's not sustainable. It's not long term. And finding this way of life is always 100% a life-changing experience and gives everybody a brand new start. And I think that that's just amazing. And yes, we're out here trying to get people to realize what can happen 5, 10, 15 years down the road if they don't start making changes. But for a lot of the people who we do end up working with, this is where they're at. It's do or die, quite literally.
Right. See, for me too, I know everyone has a little different way that they get plant-based, or they end, I don't want to call it a finish line, but the thing is, some people just flip a switch overnight. And it kind of happened, but not all the way. So for me, looking back again, same, looking at the guy that was, processing all that meat and had a giant smoker in his backyard, to say, oh, you're going to be, because I hated like the word vegan. I still don't actually care for using that word because it's too hard to explain the difference. But, I can't imagine saying that to my friends, meeting them for breakfast, at the diner or something. Like, I would have never done that. But that same mentality to say, the first walk I did on purpose was 0.74 miles, and it took almost an hour, and my wife had to go get a car and pick me up because I couldn't go anymore. I came home and I had to ice. My ankles got so big, I had to loosen my shoes. It was terrible. And I was done. I was done for probably 3-4 days from walking 0.74 miles. It was hell. But if you would have looked at me and said, I want you to run a 5K next year, I would have quit. I would have just quit. But for me, that's like my little slogan, eat plants. All you got to do is a little more than you did yesterday. That the idea that scares people is to say, well, I see myself, whatever. If someone's 420 pounds and then you say, oh, go be a Josh LaJaunie. He just ran a 100-mile race. Well, that's totally unattainable. But if you break it down into little things, some of the, I kept a journal for a while, and I went back to it, a few weeks ago. And one of the first entries in there, my exercise for the day, and I had already lost weight, but it was a big deal for me to get up out of a chair. If you're 400 pounds, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but you have to start rocking to get momentum up. Like, you can't just stand up, and that's a lot of mass to move. So you start rocking to, and then you push down, you got to get it timed just right. Like when you're trying to push a car out of the snow. And it was a big deal to stand up, but I knew if I could stand up once, I could stand up twice. So literally in my office, I'd sit down. If I had to stand up, because I'm a teacher, so the bell would ring, I'd go lecture. I would literally stand up. I'd sit right back down and stand up again. And that was my goal for the day, to stand up twice out of the chair. And then, I also had big goals too. I wanted to, in 1 year, in fact, from the day, a little bit past that juice fast, I wanted to climb a mountain in the Adirondacks, which I wasn't even supposed to be walking. I had the first half marathon I ran, I actually had a valid handicap pass that I could have legally parked in handicap. And I had a picture of my dad and her mom and a friend that was struggling with cancer. And then a picture of my family. I had them all taped on that handicap pass. And I tied that around my waist. And I ran my first half marathon with that thing. And that wasn't me getting up out of the couch and going to run a half marathon. I was just doing a little bit more than I had done the day before. That 0.74 mile walk turned into a mile, and then 2 miles. And before you know it, I was, walking 3 miles at night. And then I started walking through the woods. And then I started walking up hills. And, before you know it, I'm not really fast, but I completed a marathon. And I think this was my 8th or 9th half marathon this week. So we do a lot together. My wife and I, our entire life has changed. The TV's never on. we're always out doing something, some new adventure that we're going on, and we're loving life now.
I remember reading one of your rants, and it said something like, then Bucky said something like this: your story's not about the finish line, it's the fact that you made it to the starting line. That's amazing. And I think that you were talking to him about your time that you wanted to get in the race and kind of letting go of that. But the fact that you're even here and making it to that start line, and you continue to come to start lines, is really the amazing part. And I think that's what people need to take away, that it's not about finishing a race. It's about getting yourself to the point where you can enter that race and you can stand up and get there.
Right. And another thing is it's not perfect. I mean, everyone thinks that, well, you don't get rid of Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. It doesn't go away. But the thing is, and I think this is true with pretty much every chronic disease out there, has some form of inflammation. And so I try to work with EDS people as much as I possibly can, because it's frustrating. It's depressing that everything you do, I mean, if I go pick up my keys off the counter, I can dislocate my wrist, which is a big deal. But what made it a bigger deal, the food that I was eating, everything was inflammatory foods. This is all the opposite foods that I should have been eating. So when you start looking at food, I hate to sound cliche-ish, but you look at food as medicine, ginger and red pepper and all these things that are good for your joints. I started focusing on them. I would, put ginger in everything just so I could get it, and turmeric and all these things. But what happened is I still would get hurt. I would still roll my ankle. I would still blow out my knee. My knees, right? I can take my knees. Sometimes my kneecaps are on the back of my leg when I wake up. That's not gone. My connective tissue is still super stretchy. But I don't have the inflammation that used to just cause all the pain and all the stiffness. And what that allowed me to do is get stronger. I went from literally not being able to pick up a piece of chalk. I have a 500-pound deadlift now. And it didn't just happen overnight, but it happened from eating the right food and getting stronger by the day. My muscles actually started taking over where my joints were weak. So my knees are still destroyed, right? But my muscles take over for them now. And that's huge. I guess my point is, it's not always perfect. It's not, because everyone's going to have excuses. No matter who it is, they're going to have an excuse. And they need to know that this is not all perfect. You see the before, you see the after, you don't see the middle, though. I mean, I struggled. I messed up a lot. I had to get back up. I still do a lot of things wrong, It's a battle, but it's a battle. There's no end to it. You just have to realize that every morning you're going to get up and fight. And regardless of the results, you're going to get up tomorrow and fight again. And if you can get that mentality, you can change your life. Literally.
Speaking about the before and after, you sent us an awesome picture that people are going to want to check out on our show notes of you. How much were you weighing at that big picture, and how much were you weighing in that half marathon picture?
Well, I never, the doctor's scale ended at 350, which I can remember. I remember the day that thing went clunk and there was no more room. She would slide that all the way up and it wouldn't move at 350. And I remember looking down at the top corner of the notes, she just put, I think plus or something. She didn't put a number in there. And I can remember walking out of the doctor's office. I felt so bad. That was a terrible thing. But then it took me about 15 minutes to figure, now they have no idea how much I'm gaining. So this is good. So the doctor said I was well over 400. I don't know what that means. I don't know how he figures that, but I was definitely over 4. So conservatively, I was 400 pounds. And I fluctuate a lot depending on what season I'm in. When I'm training, when I'm doing a lot of running, I shed a lot of weight. Right now I'm in the weight room a lot. So I'm about 225, 220, somewhere in there, depending on my activities.
It's a great transformation story. And like you said before, it's all about the journey of where you were to where you are now. And I'm wondering what advice maybe you can give some of our listeners that might be in a situation that might be similar, or just another challenging health position that they're in. What would you say to them right now?
Yeah, it's, you have to find your own path. And I mean, my answers change so much on this question, because I used to have this textbook question that everybody, expected to hear. But the truth is, it has to be your journey. Everyone, me, I hate to keep bringing up Josh, but me and Josh were talking about this the one day, and, people, instead of worrying about the stuff that they need to worry about, they're, what kind of shoes do you wear? What kind of garment do you have? And, those are bad questions. But the thing is, I think part of the journey, to make it an authentic journey, it has to be your own. I had no clue what I was doing. When I watched Forks Over Knives, I had never heard of plant-based. I didn't even know what a vegan was, to be honest with you. I had no clue. But I think part of the reason why for the success in my journey, and I'm definitely not where I want to be. I have a long ways to go. I probably have a longer ways to go in front of me than I have behind me. But everything I learned, I kind of learned just from hunting around on the internet, doing research, talking to people. And I think that's a huge part of the journey. There's no prescription, because that's what messes it up. Everything that you get out there as a diet or something temporary, it's not about that. You need to learn and just keep moving forward. And you have to learn from experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And you mentioned Josh LaJohny a couple of times. So I'll just say, for anyone who doesn't know his story, you can go to the Plant Trainers Podcast, episode 105, where we had a conversation with him, and you could hear that. So, Tim, if anybody wants to reach out to you, where would be the best place for them to connect with you?
Let me just, one more thing, because
Sure.
This is something that has really interested me, and I think the farther along I get in this, the more it interests me, because my passion, I get more joy out of seeing, like this one guy I'm working with that the doctor sent me. Guy's got like 60 pounds off. There's no way he's going to qualify, for surgery now. He feels great. He's texting me all the time, pictures of food. I feel better about that 100 times over than I do my own journey. So my passion is to help as many people as I possibly can. And I think about this a lot. If I could set up this scenario, this perfect little prescription for do this, this, and this, and I do that. I try to do that by talking to as many people as I can, because believe it or not, my story, it sounds like an anomaly, but it's not. There's thousands of us out there that have the identical stories way, more amazing than mine. This is not like a one-time thing. And I look at where they come from and what all kind of meshed together to get them plant-based, and you can't find it. You can't find that thing, all these things kind of work together and they just kind of end up on the plant-based path. And I can't repeat it. It's so different. But the one thing I do know for sure is once people are plant-based, I can almost guarantee you, if they get into a community of other people and keep getting educated, they'll never leave it. And that's huge. Community is huge with this. For a couple years, I felt like I was on an island. I didn't know anyone that was plant-based. And then once I got into social media and started meeting people and actually going, we're going to New Jersey in a couple of weeks to, just hang out, have dinner with people that are plant-based. We're going to drive 6 hours, right? It's huge to get connected into a community. It's huge.
That's what we're trying to do with our Facebook groups, Healthy Plant-Based Families and Plant-Based Nutrition, Health, and Fitness, is create a community. And we've met a lot of the people from our groups, and we give advice, and we offer our 21-day vegan party. And a lot of people and we use the word vegan because that's what people understand, but once they start, they understand that it's not just about vegan, it's about eating properly for your body. And people are always like, but what's the meal plan? What's the meal plan?
Right.
And we do give a 1-week meal plan, but it's a suggestion and it's a template. And what I try to explain to people before they join is that I will work with them to make it work for them. Because just like not everybody's getting on the path for the same reason, not everybody is going to want to eat a chickpea casserole on a Monday night. And that's not, if chickpeas make you gag, then what's the point of chickpeas, right?
Right.
And everybody's on their unique path, but coming together as a community and discussing and enjoying and feeling part of something and feeling like you're not alone on a desert island is key to making this sustainable as well.
Absolutely. And that's the one connection thing that I see. Like, I can't tell how people get in there, but I can tell what keeps them in there. And that's critical. And it's probably no different than any addiction program and recovery program, just staying connected with people, and you feel accountable. And the third key to it is to give back. You found something really cool, and I'm doing this thing right now on my page, and it's going crazy. I'm just every day for 30 days, I'm just putting someone's story out there, and it's helping so many people. And the girl that I had on there today, she's like, oh, my story can't help anybody. And she, it was like 6,000 people viewed it, and it's going crazy because everyone can relate to someone different, whether it's a military mom or whatever. And the thing is, these people that I'm putting up, they totally smash excuses. It doesn't matter. Like you guys have young kids, and that's one excuse I already hear. Oh, I'm too busy with the kids, financial, whatever it is. People always have excuses. And the more stories I can put out there, the more excuses we rob from people. It's huge.
We didn't have an excuse because Adam wasn't supposed to live till 40. And that wasn't acceptable for him. And it wasn't going to happen. And he needed to find a way that was going to make him healthy, that was going to make him see his children be born. I was pregnant with our second. And yeah, everybody's got a story, and it influences other people. And for some people, it's about weight and sickness that comes with weight. For other people, it's about, cancer and tumors and not being able to get out of bed and mental illness. And everybody's got a story. And there are thousands of people who could connect with you. You just don't know them. So you feel crazy alone at that time.
Right. And, the other thing, too, then you have the group of people that, they eat terribly, but they're not like that overweight. And so when I did a presentation a few weeks ago, and I'm like, because I show a picture of my father and a picture of her mother. And I said, these were my reasons. And I know that there's people sitting there and they're like, yeah, I'm not 400 pounds. Like, oh, whoa, that's crazy. If I ever got that big, I would do something about it. But so I told them, even if it has nothing to do with weight, these are my reasons. And I show them my reasons. And I'm like, I don't know what is it worth to you to spend one more day with your kids or one more day with a loved one? What is that worth giving up the meat and dairy? Is it? And it really, like, the whole place gets silent because you don't look at it like that. You might not be trying to, like, get rid of cancer or a terrible disease or lose 200 pounds, but what is it worth to spend one more day with a loved one? Is it worth getting more healthy? Is it worth eating more vegetables and plants? I don't know.
I think so.
I do too.
So we'd like to thank you so much for spending time with us on the show today, sharing your story, sharing your inspiration, and how, as Adam said before, how can people reach you if they want to learn more about your story?
Well, I have a blog. It's fatmanrants.com. It's the rantings of a former fat man. It kind of everything. I have no clue what I'm doing with any of this stuff. And to be honest with you, right now, it's getting kind of overwhelming. The idea was to write a book. And then someone said, well, if you're going to write a book, you should blog. And I'm definitely not a writer, but somebody likes what I'm writing because my page gets a lot of traffic. So then I wanted somewhere to share it, so I set up a Facebook page. So basically anything fatmanrants.com, whether it's YouTube. One of the things that always comes up with people, they want to know about food. And like for me, food is like an afterthought now. I'll come home all happy, with, carrots and apples and cabbage everywhere on my counter. And they're like, great. Now what do you do? I'm like, you eat it. So what I started doing, I got a GoPro and I started recording all these crazy videos, and it'd take me, an hour to edit them. I don't have time. So what I do now is, like, when I eat, whatever I cook, I just take a couple pictures of it and I throw it up on Instagram and I put a brief description. So all my food goes on Instagram. That's pretty much where my food outlet is. And then I connect with quite a few people on my page. I think, I don't know, there's like over 4,000 on there. But yeah, or just hit me up, personal Facebook, Tim Kaufman, too, whatever.
So we'll link to your Facebook and to your website and to your Instagram in our show notes. So if anybody wants to check that out, they can definitely check that out along with your before and after picture. And I believe your after picture is just from yesterday, from when we recorded this.
It is. And, the thing is, if someone, honestly, in all sincerity, if someone reaches out to me, Probably like a private Facebook message is probably the best way because stuff gets kind of lost on my page. But I will do my best. If they're in the States, I'll give them my cell phone number. I'll do whatever I can do to help, so long as they want to help themselves. And even if they're not in the States, some Saturday mornings I get on Skype or even message or phone. So, my sincere hope is to help people. No strings attached. So
Thank you for all that you do.
thank you guys too. You guys are awesome.
What an incredible guy. Tim is amazing. If you haven't checked him out, make sure you do. It was so awesome to be able to talk to him and share this show again with you.
Make sure that you download next Friday's episode, number 210, with Brenda Davis, one of my mentors, an extremely, extremely smart and powerful lady.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any other podcast listening platforms. We appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it ensures other people will find us too. Thanks to our patrons. To become a patron, visit www.patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference. Connect and follow us on Instagram and Twitter @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at www.planttrainers.com for awesome plant-based recipes and a list of our services. Email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so we can answer them on our upcoming Facebook Lives. We hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time and have a healthy day.